Hello. I want to share my thoughts about reading this book. It's been a while that I started reading this book's name is called The Dance of Anger, A Woman's Guide to Changing the Pattern of Intimate Relationships. I think it is very useful for everybody, not just for women. So the title is also a little bit strange that you would think it's about anger management or something like that, but it's actually not really about anger management. It's more like about understanding anger. And beyond that, it gives the concept of a triangulation. Like I heard about triangulation before as a term, usually when people get married and then they say like, yeah, my husband is always, on the side with his mom and I just feel isolated. Or like the husband saying like, yo, it's so annoying that my mom is always criticizing my wife and my wife is angry at me and I don't know what to do. I think this is like the classic triangulation. And it actually talked about how do you deal with this. First of all, if you have a problem with someone, directly talk with that person instead of going to talk about this with somebody else. I have never really thought about if I don't directly talk to the person to deal with the issue or talk about the issues that we have, you are creating a triangle that making the person you talked about the other person closer with you but isolating the other person. And at the end of the day, it also doesn't really solve the issue, sometimes even like intensify this triangle, solidificating this triangle. I give you an example. At work, I was not happy with certain situation, but I find it really difficult to directly talk to the person because I just feel pressure and just doesn't feel easy to do. And actually, the first thing I did was trying to talk with the other person about this issue. And it happens all the time. Like it could be within family, it could be with friends at work, whatever it is, because it's much easier to just be honest with the other person about how I feel and what I see is the problem than directly talking with the person. And this is something that I need to learn because I didn't know that I've been always struggling to do so. And it's kind of being like escaping from solving the problem. Is a fear of afraid of confrontation. Confrontation, it's something I need to learn about. I think most of the people from Asian cultural background would understand what I mean. We are definitely not built for that or conditioned for that. But ever since I bear this in mind, I would be like, okay, if I talk to the other person about the issue, then I would say, I'm just trying to ask for advice, but I would directly talk to the person about this. And then I did. And it was like the most scariest shit ever because I realized I really don't do it enough in my life. And that's why I feel scared. And I always try to sugarcoat as well. Sugarcoat how I feel or the problem. Make it sound like, it's not as serious as this thing. Downplaying everything, basically. That is something that I still need to learn to not do that. But I'm already happy that I improved and trying to directly talk about the issues. And I have a good experience after this. The person is receptive about what I said, and that gives me a little positive reinforcement that, okay, it's safe to do so, and I can continue to do it. So that is just one rule that I learned from the book, and I hope I will continue to do that, even though sometimes it might be difficult. And the other thing is like, you need to know about your family diagram or family trees in general, because apparently all these dynamics are being played out across generations. We know about Generation generational trauma. But in this case, it's about relationship dynamics. So if you draw out a family diagram, something shown in the book that is a book. So it kind of looks like this. It looks complicated, but it's not. So for circle means woman, square means man, crossed on it means he's already dead, and then these are the offsprings, again showing the genders here, as detailed as possible with the age, whether they're born, and if they have divorced or broke up already, then do this symbol. The importance is that within your family, if they are the eldest or the youngest, actually make a difference. So in this case, the problem here is that most of us don't really know about or think about dynamics across generations. So we are just only seeing it what we know. But if you manage to get all this information, you will see there is a pattern in it. And that might help you understand why is it like this. And the other interesting thing is that for, let's say, a kid in a family that are like a problem child, sometimes it actually is because of the parents have turmoil or problems within their relationships. And children are very sensitive and they are little genius. So they become the problem child so that they can focus on the child instead of fighting each other. And so you wouldn't know until you read about this book. Like, how would you actually come up with this knowledge, to be honest? How do you know this knowledge without reading or learning? The other thing is you need to avoid, I mean, we all know, avoid using your child, even if it's an adult child, to be your marital therapist or confidant or keeping secrets, something like that. It's exactly what my mom did it to me. Like, she told me a bunch of things like, oh yeah, I divorced with your father, we're marrying, I'm moving to the US, and I'm gonna bring you with me, but don't tell your father, don't tell your brother, all these things. Like, it's horrible. It's horrible to the child because you are isolating the child at the expense of getting close with you. So that's another point. And in general, I would say whenever someone is putting you in the position that like A and B arguing, and if you feel the need to interfere, don't. That is the classic triangle. Just let them deal with each other. And if they come to you, complain about the other person, make sure that you don't take sides and encourage them to just directly talk to each other. After that, if it still stays the same, let's say you have dinner, let's say you meet and then they argue or whatever, just say like, I'm not interested in this conversation, it's nothing do any good for me, I am gonna leave. Just withdraw yourself from it. Of course, with more affection, not like, yeah, fuck this shit, I'm out kind of attitude. And I've been since applying all these things that I learned from book, and I think it's definitely helping me to be more mindful about who I talk to, why do I do that, and what does it mean if I do that. And I think I also need to think about not keeping secrets for other people. It's like now already in work or some other situations that they tell me some fucking crazy shit and they expect me to keep the secret. And for me, okay, of course I will keep the secret, but it's not really helpful for me. It's actually not helpful for me. It's actually subconsciously driving me apart from the the other people who I need to keep these secrets from. And it's not doing service for me. It might be doing service for the person, but it's not working for me. So again, I would say this is definitely a must-read book if you are a woman, especially because we need to understand that. So how do we deal with our anger? It says that in the society, it's very common that they categorize two groups of women. One is like bitches, and one is the good woman, something like that. Just because the bitches are more confrontational and vocal about how they feel. If they're angry, they will speak up. And then the other is just like trying to downplay everything that they feel, putting the harmony or peace as the first place for every other people. But the funny thing is, it says that these two groups of women are actually having the same problem, which is they're not really understanding or utilizing their anger or those kind of negative emotions in a way that is helping them. So I would say biggest thing reading this is that we need to accept no matter what you do, you cannot change the other person. Like, you have all this fancy idea that you can try to change the other person. It's not gonna work. Don't even think of changing the other person. So what we need to do is that we understand what works and what doesn't work for us, and be willing to walk away if you've done everything that is already like what you should be doing. You need to have the courage to walk away, because it's not every time that a book can solve the dynamic that you're talking about if it's like super toxic and out of control. So in my case, recently, I blocked my mom. And I'm not gonna block her forever. The reason why I blocked her is because I've been using every single thing that I learned to be calm with love, that wanting to rekindle the relationship by being vulnerable, saying like, hey, I'm hurt by this growing up. The absence, the lies, the manipulation, the criticism, all these things. Even though as an adult, I want to overcome this feeling and just look forward, it doesn't work because I try, and what happened is that consciously, maybe I can, or rationally, I can give the reason to do so, but my body reacts the other way. I would sob and scream and shout and shut down when it's triggered. And so it's my responsibility to take care of myself. I countless times trying to reach out and be really vulnerable doing so, even though I really expect that will be hurtful response in the end, even though if it's not intentional. Intentional is not the case here. It's that like I most certainly cannot handle what she's about to reply back, which is never about, I don't know, acknowledgement or care, or it would just say something that outrageous to me. That is my responsibility in the end to protect myself. And in this case, because I have said this so many times, that what is my boundaries, and she just do everything around except of respecting that boundary, then I have no choice but tell that I will have to block you for a while, because I already talked about my feelings and why is it hurtful if you do certain things. But instead of listening or respecting that, I just keep on doing the things that I said is hurting me. But they could be like hurting you and saying like, no, that's not my intention. I'm sorry you feel hurt, but that's not my intention. If you feel hurt, oh, then it's my fault. But what is the whole thing about? And you keep saying all these things, but you keep hurting me, you know. And the problem with Asian culture is that just because you are blood related, you're automatically responsible to stay close, even though you don't like the person, even though you feel like there's nothing really aligned. So I don't understand. I already now understand that I probably have to heal on my own without my mom's input. And I'm trying to do so, even though it's quite difficult and I have no idea how. But I will stay optimistic, because it's only then I will be more relaxed. And if I faced it with sorrow, resentment, anger, hate, frustration, probably not gonna help. So it's gonna take more time for me to reflect on this, how to approach this. But I need to give myself the permission is that if I never actually get to that state, it's also fine. And I have to prioritize myself. Okay? And I hope that it's been an interesting video for you, and I will see you next time. Bye!